Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party virtual Enlightenment Salon of November 1st, 2020. Today, we are going to have a fascinating conversation with our foreign ambassador from Israel, Sharon Gal-Or. But first, let me introduce you to our esteemed panel for today. We have our Director of Visual Arts, Art Ramon Garcia. We have our Director of Applied Innovation, David Shoemaker. We have Newton Lee, who is the Chairman of the California Transhumanist Party. And of course, we have our 2020 US Vice Presidential candidate, Liz Parrish. So welcome to all of you today. And this is going to be a conversation about how to improve the world through challenges, through games, through creativity. And to speak with us about that, we have Sharon Gal-Or, who is a writer, a futurist, and he is the US Transhumanist Party Foreign Ambassador in Israel. Now, Sharon Gal-Or has initiated a challenge called Challenge 18. And Challenge 18 is about sustainability, and it is about leadership, and it is about essentially motivating people to, through a gamification type of interaction, improve their lives and find out about ways to improve the world. Starting in 2017, Mr. Gal-Or has been creating and promoting a new interdisciplinary thinking method with symbols encoding known as Ting Global. And the goal of this venture is to promote a dialogue around finding solutions to the challenges faced by humanity, known as SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, as defined by the United Nations. So Sharon, welcome. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. And I understand you have a presentation for us about Challenge 18 and some of your other initiatives. So please feel free to begin.
Okay, hi everyone, nice to meet you. Maybe not really a presentation, but maybe to share the background of it and to show a fun WhatsApp short video. So I'll share screen and we'll just have a look. 1 second. You see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, stop sharing. Yeah, okay. So hi everyone. I am Sharon, and thank you, Gennady, for the lovely introduction. Today I would like to present you with my current activity, which is about a book I'm about to publish, named The Journey to Ludoland. Ludo in Latin means games, just like in Danish, Lego means let's play. So I actually, in the book, I tackle the subject, the topic of what if there are not any longer new toys and games? What if there are not any more new toys and games? Like as a metaphor, to progress and technology, what if it just stopped? And not a smaller issue that I also communicate in the book is climate change. And there the protagonists have exactly 18 days to try and convince the king and the inhabitants of a big flood that is coming the way to wash the whole kingdom. Will they succeed? Well, it's like a rage prophecy, you know, like in the Bible, you know, Moses said like 10 different strikes on Egypt before Pharaoh agreed to let his people go. It's always in the last time that we wake up to the dangers, the challenges, you know, as especially if we cannot see them, such a huge topic to like as climate change, you know, same as the corona. It's not something we can see yet, you know, as governments, you know, all did these closures. You know, people had to follow, and this is the way to change humanity. But, you know, it's politics, policy making, and shaping the new world as such, in such a way. So the challenge 18 actually is a direct continuation of the book. Usually you read a book and put it aside, maybe reflect about it for a day or two, or a week, a max, or maybe it's something you study in schools if it's like classics. But you know, for me, I always like to say that stories, such as moral stories, have the power to shape mankind's destiny. It's this way we can touch, you know, many minds and souls. And yet again, a book can be just a story. And this is how I came up with challenge 18 days of sustainability and leadership. I said, you know, we may judge the king and the inhabitants for waiting till the last moment, for not raising awareness or not caring enough. But how committed are we to change our behavior, our actions, in knowing that there is a climate crisis, which is the crisis of the whole humanity? So I designed the challenge, same as for the protagonist, the hero's journey, whereas like each day we focus on one of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And then I added another day, which I call H plus, you know, like for the future of humanity, or 18, which in Hebrew means chai, which means life. So here we are. Gennady, if any questions, or should I go on and continue how the challenge works and etc.?
I think it would be helpful for our audience to find out more about how the challenge works. And in the meantime, we're already starting to get comments come in from the chat, but I'm going to let them accumulate a bit more because I think you might answer some of the questions that people might have in the back of their minds.
Okay, so actually, I always ask myself, how do I make an impact? How I leave, you know, something behind for future generations? And I designed a few social games in the past, and I've learned a great deal. Using games elements, games mechanisms as to do, like to design, let's say, a marketing campaign for a party, for example, for political party, or for any other cause, like for non-profit or even for a school. It's all about using the same game elements. So like as a toy and game inventor, I can point a few, which is like choose a topic, a proper name, easy to remember. You know, each year, the challenge 18. And then like choose a proper mechanism, and then set a very simple set of rules. These are very simple to remember, you know, as for someone who lived in Hong Kong, we use the MTR. So it's like mechanism, topic, and rules, easy to apply and remember. Another game mechanisms that is like all game companies know, I often very much familiar, is like a scoring system. You know, apply as many scores as possible. And I will share with you soon my screen, so you will see how I designed a scoring system that each and everyone can test his level of commitment in changing his or her behavior to, as you know, what else? Voluntary participation. So the idea is to have the game more than just engaging, is like to get people to want to join, and then even to repeatedly again and again play the game. So there were here like a few game elements that I shared with you. Also, of course, you know, if as you know, you could say that okay, maybe I'll say it later. But if I'll talk about now the challenge 18. So my question was, what if we to connect between a social challenge and the SDGs, which is like a global topic that most are familiar with, and then with TED Talks, right? Which again, this is something that most people are very fond of. So this is how I started the challenge. And the way it goes that every day I actually share like I can share screen and you could just see it. It's very simple the way it goes. OS disabled. Okay. If you will allow me to share screen, I could show you the mechanism. Basically, every day I share 3 different tasks. And okay, now I can do it. Every day I share 3 different tasks. Here, for example, day 5, I start with the symbol of the day, you know, SDG number 5, gender equality. So today I have like I'm started a new group 5 days ago, and then I share like a TED video, which is about gender equality. It's an amazing one. I really highly recommend all the TED Talks I designed. Then task number 2 is like, you see, like, so watch a TED Talk and then reflect on what you saw. Number 2, observation. Think of a case where you yourself felt gendered or a case of gender discrimination that you encountered in your life. What did you do then? And what would you do differently today? Feel free to share with the group what you wrote. You could see that the tasks are numbered 1 to 3. 1 is the easiest, less commitment to actually to challenge yourself. Number 2 is like, you know, in the middle, and number 3 is the most challenging. See like this, for example, a thank you letter. Write a letter of thanks, a letter of appreciation to a person of the opposite sex, close to your heart, that you think has hurt you at some point in your life. Before writing a thank you letter, clear all the negative feelings about that person. If you still feel resentment, you can also write down all the negative feelings on a piece of paper and then burn it or tear it. The important thing is that when you write a letter of thanks, appreciation, you no longer feel resentment against that person. Okay, so you see, it's actually like thanking someone who has hurt you. This is a very challenging part. Then each day I also share like a piece of an informative piece of about, you know, raising the knowledge toward that specific SDG in general. And you know, I always raise a question like, what do you do to fight gender equality? What do you do to fight gender equality? What do you do to fight gender inequality? And then a statement, you know, like, we do not discriminate between people. We do not ask what a person's religion is and what race he belongs to. He must be a human, and for that we say enough. This is a statement by Benjamin Zev Herzl, which was the visionary of the Jewish state. Then you have my recording. So this is how it works on a daily basis, whereas if I'll scroll up, you'll see how people are marking that they have 24 hours to mark, actually by the game design, the tasks they have completed. So here, for example, it is said that he has completed the task for day 4, which is a heart and a flower. The sherry means that he has challenged himself not to eat sweets till the end of the challenge. So this is, like you see, a continuous challenge. And the football means that he's doing the plankit challenge each day, like for 1 minute plankit. Here you see this person has challenged himself. You see the earth means that to become a vegan or vegetarian till the end of the challenge. So now I'll share with you the where is it? Yeah, maybe here, 1 second. Yeah, this is the scoring table I have designed. So each and every one could actually be challenged in changing the habits. You see, what is the real price of our lifestyle? Is it possible to measure happiness, sustainability? And in general, can we change our habits and live a more sustainable lifestyle? And perhaps even lead others to do as we do? The answer is definitely yes. The purpose of Challenge 18 score table is to help you measure your potential for personal sustainability and how committed you are to the process of change and growth, and of course, give you an indication of your level of commitment to the 18 Days of Sustainability and Leadership Challenge and real change. It does not represent your personality. Okay, that's for sure. The score is based on the tasks you have chosen to take on. You must calculate the cumulative score of the tasks. The score of each task is between 1 to 3, plus the continuous tasks. And here I'll show you the score table. So you see it's designed according from day 1 to 18, according to the SDGs. Then the heart or a flower represents like the task number 1, the easiest one, like viewing a TED Talk and reflecting on it. And then on day number 2, which is about zero hunger, I came up with 2 different continuous tasks that relate to our nutritional habits. Like you see, like this is the symbol for challenging yourself to become vegan or vegetarian. This is the symbol, and you see it starting from day 2. You see in day 3, which is about good health and well-being, you are challenged also with the Planky challenge. Then you could see here on day 7, you are challenged to also like save energy, also mentally. Here a role play now. Day number 8. Actually, you place yourself in the eyes of a successful person you're familiar with, and you just start to pretend you are that person. A digital pacifier is just like, there is a diet 16-8. So I actually did the same, but for using or not using the mobile phones. So 16 hours, you should put the mobile phone aside. I must say that I did it with some teenagers of 8th grade, and surprisingly, they all challenged themselves with the digital pacifier and successfully. It surprised me that they chose to challenge themselves with the mobile, the time they play with the mobile. Here you could see like practicing listening. It's here actually on day number 10, which is about reducing inequalities. I didn't give any TED Talk or any task. It's just about practicing the art of listening. I'll stop sharing the screen and later I'll get back to it. But you can see that the maximum total, if on each and every day you complete all tasks, you could get to 396 points, which in Hebrew in geometry, it means the hero's journey. Okay, so this is a nice part also of the design. Here I stopped the share. Yeah, so maybe any questions, so you could enlighten me, or yeah.
Well, I'll have an observation for you to start with. This reminds me a bit of the challenge that Benjamin Franklin designed for himself in the 18th century when he was still a fairly young man, and he wrote about it in his autobiography. Essentially, the challenge that he posed to himself was how to try to become morally perfect. And he essentially discerned 13 virtues that he wanted to follow and exemplify. But he realized that it would be an overwhelming task to focus on all of them at the same time. So he picked one virtue to focus on a week at a time. And essentially, he identified behaviors that would be contrary to that virtue. And every time he lapsed, he would essentially put a check mark for that day for the number of lapses that he experienced. And he did essentially discover that as he was focusing on a particular virtue, he was able to minimize the instances of the lapses, and it would carry forward into subsequent weeks. So after he no longer made one virtue his focus, but he moved on to another one, some of the habits that he gained from the prior week still carried forward. So he came to the conclusion at the end of this exercise that he couldn't prevent every single lapse, even at the end of this challenge, but he did minimize the total. So he found that it was a worthwhile exercise to go through as a way of self-improvement. Even if it wasn't possible for him to become morally perfect, at least he became better. So this is what this challenge reminds me of in terms of the kinds of incentive effects that it might have on people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is a very, you could say, fast-going challenge. It's like 18 days, and each one you see, like, we tackle like the big challenges of humanity. It's like I always tell people, this is like a trailer before you choose to watch a movie on Netflix. You want to watch the trailer, so this is like a trailer to the movie we call life. And actually, I do it over and over again, as I myself wish to follow these virtues and perfect my way of thinking and feeling and action. And the practice here, you know, if I'll share with you the virtues that I designed to be at the center of this, like the art of listening as a skill. You know, my whole activity program, Ting, in Chinese, the character actually is a combined of the ear, the eye, and the heart, which like you could actually see as 3 levels of listening. Like, so you listen, you hear me, then the eye, so you could see things through my eyes, and then the heart, like you really feel empathy and care about what is it that I have to say, and not just at the same time think of what is it that you want to say next. Yes, so this listening is one of the main virtues, skills I focused on. And obviously you see it's like communication, you know, as I think this is one of the most important skills for us as humanity to work on, as you know, like this is what differs us as a species, the ability to communicate in large numbers, and therefore the challenge. Like I've reached like hundreds of people in no time, in few weeks, from all over the world, like even TED speakers that took on the challenge. Just as and you know, like one of the definitions I'm very fond of for culture means the intelligent management of human emotions. You know, it's really about the intelligent management of human emotions, and this is so simple to remember as a definition. And when we talk about intelligent, then we also know that the more intelligent the system is, the more freedom of action it requires and provides. And this is as I see it, like the way we should aspire as humanity toward like becoming a more intelligent system. And hopefully the challenge will allow us to better communicate. As you see, culture is also not about the tools or the mechanisms or the platforms. Those change constantly. It's about morality and about, again, managing the human emotions. Yeah, you know, there is a well-known statement by Einstein. You know, he says that knowledge will take you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. And then, you know, there is another, I was thinking of it, and Aristotle once said also about, he talked about the ethos and pathos and logos. So logos might, you know, resemble to knowledge, and ethos to ethics, morality, and pathos to imagination. This is as I see it. And you see the ethos, the ethics. So we know that by Einstein that imagination could take us everywhere, but everywhere is not necessarily heaven. It could be hell as well. And there is where like I combine those two, you could say, smart and wise words, and I said yes, like we should use our imagination and creativity, but real wisdom per definition is not just creativity, it's also morality. And this is where I actually put my thoughts, and you know, also when I designed the challenge and wrote the book.
So thank you for those insights. And it is really fascinating to get a window into your thought process. I'm curious if any of the panelists have any questions or comments for Sharon. Please feel free.
I want to thank you for doing such a wonderful job. It's really good. Challenge is amazing. And especially gamification. Gaming is basically a very powerful tool to teach not just the young people, but also everybody. Because I've been teaching game design development for a while now. Actually, at Disney, I also spent 10 years on making computer games. So a lot of games are educational, which is great. But it's also interesting that you brought out the idea of a hero's journey, right? Which is really good. It turns out the length of hero's journey is one of the criteria to look at a game. Okay, what is the action adventure game, for example? It's about hero self-discovery, understanding who you are, what your talents are, and how to use the talents to help people. So it's fascinating. So what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Newton. And Liz, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm just really appreciative of what you're doing, and I'm wondering why I'm just hearing about this now. I want to learn more about it, and I was interested in, what does planket mean?
Oh, I was thinking about a meme that is already out there on social media, and the plank it as an exercise. It was like maybe one of you can describe it better. Like,
Oh, I know what a plank is. Yeah. Yeah, it's
okay,
a
okay,
core strength exercise.
exactly,
I
yeah. So,
I
go
think it
ahead.
would be great if everyone was encouraged to this 18-day plan, and that social media was, that social media was really part of it, so that everyone would bombard. If you went on social media, you would see gender equality, you would see, the idea of eating better, vegetarian. I've been vegetarian for over 20 years. I it would be great if those days were really bombarded by everyone with those messages, and then everyone who wasn't participating would remember, oh, that's what's happening today. That would really be nice to see.
That's my vision and dream, and this is also why I've written the book. And also to, it's a fantasy book where I actually, you know, um, I talk to the archetypes and subconscious and allow people to raise these as a topic to the higher conscious level, and raise awareness. The design of the game is like a copy-paste mechanism, so everyone who is challenged is also challenged to also open a group of his own and practice leadership by doing so. So when I'm doing it, even with my students, the grade 8, they challenge their parents and siblings, and this is amazing because even like shy and insecure kids can now see, wow, we are like, we have leadership skills in us. We have a leader. Like, I could also be Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is empowering people to see that they can make a difference. I mean, one of the problems that we have, everyone thinks that it's very generational. I know that when we were kids, we blamed our parents for how poorly everything was going on the planet. But the truth is that most of us grow up, we get really busy just trying to make a living and put food on the table for our kids. And so we are just part of the machine. We're not part of the process of the bigger things that we think change the world, but we could do it ourselves. We could do it by how we spend our money and what we do in our daily lives. And it sort of gives some power back to us, that we can make a difference. And I really love that. And I would love to see you do this. I know you want everyone to put their phone down, but they don't seem to be doing that anytime soon. I would love to see this be a phone app that, people, and it gives you a push notification, reminder to meet your day's goals, do these things. That'd be fantastic. And for anyone watching and thinking that some of these things seem like a big sacrifice, they are things that most people could easily do. And after a while, you wouldn't even notice the changes that you made.
Absolutely. I'm very agile with, like the way I designed, like that you could choose, and no one really knows about. So it's like you are on your own course of, of your own hero's journey. Like no one in the group, and this could be a group filled of strangers. And even if it's like we are all classmates, each chooses for him his own, is walking his own path, and we are just going the same way, climbing the same mountain. So there is a kind of a positive social challenge, and I see it in groups. Like there was an obese young boy that decided to challenge himself not to eat sweets during the days of the challenge, and right away his teacher and classmates all encouraged him, and this was like very surprising for me. Um, and another thing, it's just not just another Zoom meeting. It's fun. It takes just between 10 to 20 minutes of your day. Like there are soldiers, for example, that they write to me and says like, we will not be able to be by our mobile phones for a few days. And still I tell them it's okay. You could just do it, in your own pace. So it's very personal, and yet we do it as a group. It's a community. You feel you are part of a community, and more committed, of course, as you are now part of something which is bigger than yourself. And again, it's all about values. It's all about values. People are very excited to take part, as they really want to just go through this hero's journey, and they aspire for perfection. We all do. And allowing this flexibility, as each and every one of us always wanted to do something to become better, but we never had the time, or we never had the right environment, the right set of people. And here we are, boom, we have we are all as one. Yeah, that's part of how it is designed.
And I think the future of games is immersing oneself in the prospect of it. And I know that from the games that became popular when I was younger, like The Legend of Zelda and things like that, that I absolutely love. Now it's a lot of it is less story and more, action. It's very much like movies have become very little dialogue and a lot of things blowing up. And with people desiring and wanting like the Oculus experience and submersing themselves into it, I mean, this is sort of bringing the gamification to your everyday life. Plus it's teaching really good values. So I just wanted to say, I very much appreciate what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. And those are great comments, Liz. They lead right into the next question from David Shoemaker, who says, betterment is noble. Many of today's games are not concerned with noble endeavors, perhaps the opposite. So how to motivate people towards betterment? Sharon, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just by, the right design of, it's whatever we imagine could be achieved. So it's just like I connected between Einstein and Aristotle. It's about not just about imagining war games and dualism and division. It's about designing like games of, you could say, even competition, like cooperative competition, so where we can cooperate as one. Like there is this TV game called Big Brother, and there, like, the game is designed that we all need to fight against each other, as to win. But the very same game could be also designed that we all need to cooperate, as such as like an escape room, right? So it's all in the game design, like that. How do we choose to design the system? Is it that we want to become better leaders, change agents, or we just want to emphasize division and dualism, like nationalist and globalist and right and left, Republicans, Democrats, like, and so it's really in setting the right mindset goal. Where is it that we want to head in as humanity? Is it that we aspire to reach the stars, or is it that we want just to create fear and chaos all around? So, and obviously the answer is, that we wish to become better as a species, and to unite. We all aspire, we all want to have hope, and we aspire for global peace and happiness. And the more intelligent the system is, also the more happy the people are, and this is even scientific. Like in day number 5, by the way, in this gender equality TED talk, it speaks about this also, that men are happier in countries where women are more equal. So there you go,
Yes, indeed. So it's interesting to discuss the incentive structure of games. What behaviors do games try to bring out? Because the design of a game is meant to be engaging. Some people might even say it's meant to be addictive, in that people want to keep coming back to the game. The game seems more interesting than everyday life, at least for the moment that someone is interested in playing it. Do you think that the design of the game, the structural elements, are kind of independent of the content, so that they can be used for good or for ill, or that the content somehow would drive the structure as well, so that a more constructive game would necessarily have a different design from a game like a first-person shooter, for example, that is less constructive?
I think it depends, but like it's more like you could apply the same set of rules, and like just like playing Pokemon Go, we could just design a game as to identify an asteroid in space, you know, just focusing the global mindset and the you know, and more eyes, more minds will be set on looking on, you know, on the big telescopes for asteroids coming our way, and therefore we might have more telescopes, you know, satellites there in space. So it's all about where is it that we want to put our focus as a species. You know, the reason that climate change is not on the main news is you see, it's politics. It's just it's known, you know, that it's not the best topic for politicians to put on the front if they want to win the public opinion or the elections, for example. But again, I think the world is changing. Like, I mean, and such a challenge, for example, can actually divert people's awareness, you know, from the main core topics they show on local news, you know, on the conservative media. Like, you know, just as a flock of birds, you know, you have like about 5% suddenly decide to shift course, and it's enough for the whole flock to shift course. Same applies for people in a stadium or any other concert, and also on social media, you know. So very simple mechanisms and for game design could be applied for various games, and we better use it for say tackling the SDGs and challenges, you know, as the climate crisis. You know, this is no joke.
Right.
Even if we cannot stop climate change, it's bigger than us, right? We cannot control the direction of the wind and how strong it is, but we can always navigate the ship of humanity by, you know, by how we deal with the sails. So, and yeah, stretch them, etc. Yeah.
Right. We have many powerful tools already for games, right? Designing and implementing games. The question is, what kind of games do we want to focus on, right? Obviously, a lot of studios are focusing on, you know, first-person shooters and things like that because they're popular, they're easy. It's just like making scary movies, horror movies. Horror movies is still the #1, you know, box office winners because, and they always have money. So that's why studios still making them. But, you know, how many horror movies are actually meaningful? There are a few, but not too many. So the same thing applies to games. There are a lot of great games out there, but a lot of them are just have absolutely no meaning. In fact, you know, they can psychologically affect, you know, young people because there's so much violence and so much, you know, antisocial things going on in games. So that's why when I teach my class of students, I talk about ethics. Well, what, when they get a job out there, what kind of games are you actually making? And there are games out there. For example, there's one game that teach people about peace, how to form peaceful negotiations and friendship between Palestine and Israel, for example. There's such a game, by the way. But obviously, it's not a very popular game compared to some other meaningless shooting up games. So the question is, how can we create something that's addictive and meaningful, something that actually affect us positively instead of negatively? If you also brought up about the gender equality, right? So obviously, historically speaking, games are more appealing to boys rather than girls. But Pac-Man was the first game ever that became really, really popular worldwide and appeals to both men and women, boys and girls, female and male. So that is amazing. So we really need games that appeal to both genders. We need games that teach us positive thinking, critical thinking, and tackle problems in the real world like global warming, like environmental protection, and of course equality and peace, right? So it would be nice if we can actually start a game company focus on those things. Okay, because we also have to think about how to make the game popular so that we can get enough revenues back so that we can make another game, right? What this is says that we make movies not to make money, but we make movies to make money so we can make more movies. Okay, so that's the idea.
It's interesting because I have been thinking for a long time about how to harness the potential of games to motivate education, for example, and considering all the time that people spend playing computer games. Indeed, sometimes people will spend time playing computer games that they should be spending on their activities of daily living. There are stories of people who were addicted to, say, World of Warcraft to the point that they neglected to eat or they neglected to take care of their families. And what if there could be a game with that level of addictiveness that focused on education, that focused on learning skills, and of course deploying those skills toward improving humankind? But I've been thinking about, say, all of the rather difficult advanced educational pathways that people pursue for which there aren't a lot of online resources. I went through the actuarial exam system in the United States, and those are some of the most rigorous exams in the world. But what I found for the upper level exams was that apart from the required textbooks, there was not a lot of readily accessible material out there in terms of practice problems, for example, that would give people the ability to engage with the syllabus content. And that's because the number of people at each successive level of exam kind of gets winnowed out. So I was curious, could there be some sort of simple gamified platform that could potentially be used for any advanced field of knowledge? If someone wants to pursue a law degree, if someone wants to pursue a medical degree, if someone wants to learn a programming language, they could use this platform, and there would be teachers of various subjects who could upload materials. But the way people would interact with these materials would be to answer quiz questions or have another format where they earn points and they're motivated to stay within that system and learn more and maybe get skills even outside of the specific credential or the specific test that they were studying for. But what if they do become addicted to that? What if instead of playing World of Warcraft, they start playing this educational game and all of a sudden they learn a great deal of skills in multiple disciplines. They're able to make connections across those disciplines. And we suddenly have this mass enlightenment that the internet was supposed to produce, that many people in the 1990s were expecting it to produce. But of course, up to now it has fallen short. Do you think that kind of approach could work if someone designs the infrastructure?
It's a very good question. Personally, I'm not very fond with the word addiction. It's like it has its negative implications. I would say habits. It's about changing our habits as for the betterment, as out of a choice. We can always choose to go on this hero's journey and perfect ourselves. But addiction, it's like it means it's out of our control. And then think, what if one day there is an AI that also takes over, and can use game mechanisms as just life is a game. It has been since the dawn of history, like even in the animal kingdom. The young learn how to become better adults by playing behavior. And again, keywords here as for saying what if there's such a platform. I would say also same as in nature. It's about diversity and allowing chaos, as from there comes order and new ideas for new games. And actually, boys and girls, blue and pink, this is a part of the history of this industry, but there is not necessarily such a thing, a game only for boys or only for girls. It's in how we as humanity choose to design the future of us as a species, so we have to be very careful here, because as a species we have these bugs in us, that we can be easily manipulated, not just by like social parties and governments, but by just like even by a very simple AI system that is designing the next, let's say, Pokemon, and who knows what's next. So yeah.
Indeed.
Right, and there's indirect and direct, right, consequences or education. You can educate somebody by, going directly, say, look, this is, the truth, and whether they accept the truth or not, that's another story. But you can also impact people indirectly. Instead of telling them the truth, teach them how to discover the truth.
Beautiful.
Right? And that's even better, because now they discover themselves. They have to accept it, because they've gone through the journey of discovery and overcoming obstacles. So in terms of games, it's one way. It's really an excellent way to teach everyone. Again, let me say that it's not just for children. It's not just for college kids, but also for adults. So I think. So Gennadi's question is about whether we have those platforms and things like that. Yes, we do. There are a number of platforms out there, and one of which is like teachers can create quiz, questions and answers in a very fun way. And I did that in class a few times. So people will take up the cell phone and they answer, multiple choices, obviously, or multiple choice questions, and then display on the big screen on the projector. How many people selected A, how many people selected B, C, and D, and so on. And then we have a fun discussion and say, why do people think A is the answer? How come so few people think D is the answer, right? Stuff like that. So again, it's not just here's the question, here's the answer. No, but you have to go through some critical thinking process. You have to, not collaborate, but discuss with the group in class. This way, everybody has chance to voice their opinion, because discussion is really important in politics, in science, in technology, everything. If without discussion, you are close-minded. With discussions, at least you listen to what other people have to say, and then you think about it. Again, whether you accept it or not is up to you, right? But a good educator usually is the one who can help students, move towards the the truth rather than a falsehood, and how to differentiate between truth and falsehood. So I think a good educator is very important. And everybody here on this panel is a good educator, because we helping people understand the world, helping people to, make the world better, basically.
Yes, thank you, Newton. Now, Liz, I understand you have to go shortly. Any last words before you depart?
No, just thank you and continue on. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and that, we're all people who are looking towards the future. We're looking towards a better world, a better place to live in, and a better way to live, I hope. And in order to achieve that, we have to be able to change. A lot of people don't like change. They hold on to things that are less important than an excellent future. And I feel like you are stepping us into part of that change by making these incremental steps for each individual to do. And I appreciate that. And I think any way that people can help you accomplish that and share your information is imperative. So thank you so much. And I'm sorry I have to go. I come to this event because I like to hear the discussions about new things, new ideas, and new technologies. And I hope that more people join us here on these crucial Sundays to expand their mind and think about new things they might not have thought about before. Not get insulted, let it in, let it out, breathe it in like new information, and help us, make those changes. I think together we're stronger. So thanks again for your wonderful talk, Sharon. It was great.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Liz, and live long and prosper until our next virtual Enlightenment Salon. And Daniel Twett in the chat says that Liz has his write-in vote. As a reminder, for those of you voting in the United States presidential election, you can write in Charlie Cam for president and Liz Parrish or Elizabeth Parrish for vice president. So if you do that, that will send a powerful message to the American political system that there are people out there who want change, who want these creative uses of technology to essentially improve the incentives facing humanity and catalyze solutions to the major problems that the world faces today. And now let's go to Art Ramon, if you have any questions or comments for Sharon.
Yes, Sharon, where have you found more acceptance, and where have you applied your program the most? You mentioned students.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, you said you mentioned students. Where have you applied your program the most?
Oh, yeah. So I also applied it in Israel, like running the challenge in Hebrew, and also on a global scale. You see, it also can be conducted on a global scale, as like, say, I share exactly at 8 p.m. each day the task, but you don't have to be there at the same time at all. Like when you wake up in the morning or whenever it is fit for you, you could just view the tasks and then follow those. So this is designed also to be an international social game. So in Israel, it was, yes, I applied it with some of my classes. Then I also opened some general public groups for, like, I would say change agents in general, change agents of any kind, for like directors of nonprofit, school principals, teachers, and so on. And same on the global groups, using LinkedIn as to invite my friends there that they also like have the SDGs as their core activity, ambassadors, consulates, organizations working with the UN, and of course members of the USTP as such, you know. And Newton here can you know, share for himself of his personal experience, you know.
Yes. Well, Newton, whenever you're ready, please feel free to share your experience of the challenge. I was interested in your remark, Sharon, about the 8th graders being more readily able to disconnect from their mobile phones. I have a hypothesis about that, and I would be curious as to what you think. So a lot of 8th graders, kids generally, they use their phones for entertainment, but the phones are not as essential of a communication tool because a lot of their environment is curated in such a way that they have many other things they could be doing with their time if they wanted to. They have their schoolwork, they can interact in person with their friends. Of course, with lockdown restrictions, it's more difficult, but still they could find ways. And their parents, of course, design their home environments, and good parents will have non-electronic outlets for their kids to engage in. So if a kid is told, okay, this is a challenge for a certain amount of time, don't use your phone, and it's not even for the entire day, it's just for part of the day, they might think, okay, I can keep myself occupied in other ways. If I was just using the phone for fun, I don't have to do that. Whereas as adults, we have become so dependent on these devices because they are methods of communication, not just for leisure, but for what we would consider work, either what we do for a living or what we do in terms of our projects, our personal projects, our social networks. So I think a lot of people fear that if they don't engage with their mobile devices for a day, they'll be flooded with hundreds of messages, and essentially it would be too big of a hole to climb out of, so to speak. So what do you think about that? Do you see that as the reason why this part of the challenge may be easier for kids than for adults?
It might be, but I don't think this is the main question to ask, as it's really about like designing a social behavior, you know, and personal new habits, you know, for the betterment of humanity. It's like, I'll give you an example, the like button, you know, Facebook. Like the goal was, you know, just to share, you know, our positive emotions, and then who knew that it can cause such discrimination so yeah, maybe they choose some kids choose this digital pacifier challenge as it's easy on them, but then again, I mean, at least they commit to something, you know, which is already something. And I can share also from the challenges that through these feedback questionnaires, that kids that had no clue about climate change, poverty, and hunger suddenly became more aware and started thinking about it, showing their interest. And for me, this is, you know, this is wonderful.
Yes, indeed. So now we have some comments in the chat that I think would be interesting to address. And we have comments from Daniel Twet. He says he likes the universal symbols aspect, making it multi-language friendly as well. And is that what you were thinking when you were designing the challenge as symbols based?
Absolutely, completely, and yeah. You know, the SDGs, what's so beautiful about those as a framework that they use colors and symbols, and you know, our consciousness also thinks in symbols. You know, just as we use the emoji on WhatsApp and hieroglyphs in Egypt and the Chinese character, and symbols is a language. I love it, and I'll tell you even something more. What's so beautiful about the SDGs here, using symbols and colors is as a framework is, we always tend to fear the unknown, right? Like this is as humans what we are designed to fear of, and suddenly there is order, like 17 different challenges we as humanity we are facing. Like, see, there is poverty and hunger and health and education and gender equality and so on. So it makes some order. It gives us peace of mind. Oh, so we know the challenges, like there are 17. Okay, now we know what is the problem, and we can approach it, and make sure to do the right things. So this is something that I really love about the SDGs, that it gives us not only hope, but you could say a template, a framework, an action plan, to start and get working on, just about synchronizing our collective mindset and thoughts, because I think it's all about that, synchronizing our mindset, focusing on what's right, and then the magic happens.
Yes, indeed. So another comment that Daniel Twet submitted was that a program of change requires a program of fun. Do you think it would be possible in a future society to have the people who do the work of changing the world enjoy it at every step? Of course, right now, for many people, activists, advocates, it feels like an uphill battle. They have to struggle to convince people. They have to struggle to implement these changes, and it does feel overwhelming. So do you think these games can transition that mindset toward one of enjoyment so that people can be motivated to get up every day and pursue these tasks?
Absolutely. It's like, like the future of education is fun, edu fun. And now more and more companies and for-profit and non-profit entities, they appoint CHOs, like Chief Happiness Officers, as to, use games as to make sure everyone on board is, content and happy. Yeah, it's always about what we don't measure doesn't count. What we measure, this is where we can actually mark our so it's definitely the future of not only education, of business, economies, politics. Like, you see, what is the election, right? Choose A or B. This is in a way, it's a game. It's like going and put in your vote. It's like it's a game mechanism. Very simple one, and but still.
And there have been a lot of thoughts about how to improve that mechanism through superior incentives that, one, make the process more engaging, and two, lead people to understand that they have more of a voice. They could have more of an impact than under the present system. For instance, with ranked preference voting, where you don't just vote for one candidate, you rank order all of them. That gives you the opportunity to express what you really want, not just vote for a so-called lesser evil. And there are other possibilities like proportional representation, where if you turn out and vote, even if your candidate is not in the majority, you might still get some representation in, say, the parliament or Congress or legislature of whatever jurisdiction you reside in. So I see the parallels there between game design and design of political systems. It's just a question of how does one essentially introduce these reforms, these innovations into a system that is, at least it feels sometimes very locked down in places. Like there's an established paradigm and there are special interests supporting that established paradigm, and that's very difficult to change. Do you think there could be some subtle ways in which games could help with that, at least open people's minds up to different possibilities?
Yeah, I think Challenge 18 in a way is is such a mechanism. In general, you never invite the king to start a revolution. So like all modern politic systems, they they are not they're not encouraging the use of blockchain technologies in general, or those that could actually end that type of regime, whereas they have the power and not the more democratic and open system. But yes. So
yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a comment made on first-person shooters by Daniel Twett. He thinks there are too many of them. And I wonder also what you think about that style of game. Does it matter what one is shooting at? For instance, if one is shooting at asteroids and the goal is to save the planet from an asteroid attack, is that, do you think, a more constructive use of that type of format?
Absolutely. We are where our thoughts are, and if we put our thoughts, and where like it's us against them, just we encourage more chaos, heart-rated fear. Whereas we as humanity, it is about time for us to rise above the division. It's, if we aspire to reach to space and, inhabit like Mars and other like stars, there above, it's for us first to unite and set like a mutual goal. This is like same with the climate change, it's like if we will not synchronize our consciousness and act as one, as a single organism toward it, even knowing we will not be able to stop climate change, but then again it's in such a way that we as humanity we can improve. And as we all know, these are critical times, just singularities approaching, and it's like for us to to set up, I would say, the new morals, write new books about friendly AI, like how we want to treat each other. There is one of the Israeli commander, and like he always told these soldiers that they could never like mistreat the people there in Palestine, and this is very obvious, because like his answer was, because then when they go home and they are back and they're out of service, they will treat the same way to other people in our country. So this is also by it's by the sages, the Jewish sages. It's very much the same. So the topics of the games, they mean a lot. They mean a lot. I know we always have, it's us as a species. We are designed with our tribal mindset, us against them. But we need to rise above the division. We need, as you just mentioned, like set up new goals as humanity, like, you know, maybe change, is it changing the course of an asteroid coming our way, or I would say more critical, like fighting the climate crisis, or the corona crisis, for example, you know.
Yes, and I think one of the ways in which games help is they create a structure by which an individual can see the difference that that person is making. So you have a kind of instantaneous or close to instantaneous feedback in a game that you don't have often in everyday life, where if you take an action, sometimes the consequences may be months or years in the future. And sometimes you're just one small contributor to those consequences. And so you don't see as much of an incentive to change something. Now, along these lines, Jason Geringer asks some interesting questions. He asks, what are the incentives for the Challenge 18 project? Are there any other incentives that could be used for, say, watching an educational video and taking a poll or a quiz? So he's asking, how could some of those incentives be translated into other contexts as well?
Oh, so in many ways, you could apply social credits, or just, you see, like the score feedback table I've designed. At the end of the challenge, I'm just making like a certificate, people love certificates. And yes, like I wrote an article for school teachers, like, the, 10 different game mechanisms they can apply in class, same as I'm doing in this Challenge 18, and Newton earlier say, just like doing these quizzes, and you could use Zoom as, to exit the main salon into smaller rooms. And in class, the way we do it, it's like we randomly enter the students into the rooms. So it's not by choice, it's by chance. And this is where also some of the magic happens, that is not created other way in class, or
And this gives rise to an interesting question, because, of course, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns, a lot of education has been channeled into online formats. And that has given rise to the possibility of some creative experimentation. Have you found that this has actually enhanced what you're able to do as an educator, since so many more students are online now and this is their predominant mode of interaction?
Absolutely, this O2O, online to on life mechanism, it's really, it has its benefits, as it's kind of like we communicate each other, we form this community, this group online, but then like we just meditate, with ourselves. We are forced to think, to listen to our inner voices. Like, for example, on day one, which is no poverty. So instead of focusing on global poverty, and this is like a very concerning topic, as to communicate to young kids, it's very scary for them. So the tasks that I am pointing them is like number two is like number one is viewing a TED Talk, and then number two is like making a list of things that we have in life. And this could be spiritual things, like I have a smile on my face, and it can be all something like I have my brothers and my sisters. So now they focus their mind on richness, okay, physical or spiritual. And then the more I would say challenging task there is like making a list of 48 people that have brought value onto your life. So again, it's like things that I have. It's about richness rather than poverty. And these are all tasks that could be applied in school and played over and over. The game design that you are in your notebook, you're also like using those lists that you have already created to dig deeper into your mind and soul and try to find the answers for you. Like, on one of the other days, you are asked to make a list of people that you find that they are happy with their life. And this is so challenging for most people. Like, how many people are you familiar of that they are like, they feel content and that everything is perfect? This is really, even for me, it was really hard to even find one or two.
Especially these days in 2020 with the pandemic, when before one might have thought, all right, somebody with a decently stable life, decent income, stable relationships, friendships, etc., would be happy. But now in 2020, a lot of that is challenged for many people. So yes, I could see how that would be one of the most difficult questions to answer right now.
But then again, it's one of the most beautiful things in it, that we all know that we are taking our own personal hero's journey, and no one is perfect. We all have our faults and and fears, and we do mistakes. It's part of us being human, and so I think it's really, it helps people to look at themselves in a new perspective and accept themselves, love themselves, which is like, I think, one of the greatest challenges young people are facing now, with all of this uncertainty around and chaos, and even the adults not knowing what the future might bring, what future jobs are going to be like, etc. So I think it really helps, that that you are part of something which is bigger than you, and hey, I'm not the only one who was, is not happy with his life, or and so it's like making things better,
Yes,
more humane.
There's a lot of value in reaching out to young people and providing that kind of framework, because it does help them in the quest for purpose and meaning. And I think a lot of people underestimate how important that is, because, of course, the whole postmodern era in Western history has eroded the search for meaning. A lot of postmodernists philosophers have said, oh, it's all subjective, it's all relative, it's all about competing narratives. But that's not satisfying to somebody who's facing real problems and who wishes to improve, if only they had some sort of direction in which to improve. And the search for meaning, it can take on constructive or destructive guises. It is also what attracts people, for instance, to religious fundamentalism, because those frameworks do provide some sort of structure of meaning. The problem is that structure of meaning is not adapted to the contemporary world, and it's also very exclusionary and intolerant. On the other hand, transhumanism tries to offer a structure of meaning which is focused toward progress, toward technology, toward improvement of the self and improvement of the human species. And that kind of meaning could be very positive and constructive. And of course, games can encode that meaning in their design. So I do really appreciate what you're doing with young people by providing them that avenue toward a constructive source of meaning.
Thank you. Appreciate your kind words. Yeah, I would say not just young people. Yes, it's definitely my focus, but then again, it's also like, I would say, like, directors of different entities, leaders, um, as it's, I think, again, we all at any age, any race, any place on the earth, we like games, and we love to inspire ourselves and uh, get more inspiration from wherever we can. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, indeed. Now, there was an interesting comment from Daniel Twett, who writes, most governments are badly designed games that alienate most of the players. And I think if one looks at the sometimes quite arcane and convoluted structure of many governments, one can see how that is. Now, interestingly, I think historically, if you look back at the ancient world, for example, nobody who was forming a government was thinking of it as a game. Generally, they were thinking of it as, can I obtain and hold power through force? And if so, then they would become a king or an emperor or some other type of ruler and pass down that power, that authority through the generations. And really the first consciously designed governments, they were republics. For instance, the Republic in Athens or the Republic in Venice, later on the United States. But even then, the design elements were imperfect. They had to contend with these realities of power, like in the United States, in the Constitution, they provided initially some protections for slavery because they recognized that the southern states in the US would have to have an incentive to stay within the Union. And if slavery were outlawed, for example, then that would cause a fracturing. And that just delayed the problem, of course, until a civil war occurred. But what do you see as some of the challenges in this area of game design as applied to society when there are these realities of power, these realities that there are these messy social systems, so to speak, that we're trying to change, we're trying to improve, but it's difficult because sometimes these flaws are quite entrenched.
Yeah, so this is where technology comes in place, like using like blockchain, you see, as a technology, and liquid democracy, and social positive credits, as to, if we aspire for altruism, for example, and not just care and compassion, but just an integrity, right? So, the only way to change people's behavior is by the way we design the games, the way we design society. It's all in the game's mechanism and rules. It's all there. Like, the people, they're just like on a chessboard. They play the game as they are, are meant to, according to the rules. So it's all in the game design, and if we want to encourage a more altruistic society, then we need to encourage altruistic behavior. And the way to do so is by, for example, setting these social credit, so to encourage altruistic behavior. And yes, maybe at first people will just choose to do right, and for the other, because they want to, for the other and for the environment also, just because of the social credits. But this is this is just like a mental phase on the way to becoming more perfect, you know, like just like you pretend to until, you know, fake it till you make it, but it's not really fake it till you make it, you know. Once it's like just like when you put a smile on your face, even just because you put a pencil between your teeth, you smile, and it, you know, and it's also not just physically, also emotionally, it triggers you to feel better, you know. So it's both ways. So you know, I think once we encourage people to adopt more altruistic mindset, you know, and of course there is nothing like like I could say like um, idealistic as like a complete altruism, but like, you know, because like you could say we are all in a way like we all just care for ourselves, like egoistic altruism, you could say, like, you know, egoistic altruism, and still it's like it's also as proven that, you know, like the more we care for ourselves, then the more we care for others, you know, like as soon as we learn to love ourselves, then we can learn love others, and also allow others to love us. Yeah, so it's all in the game design. Again, the topics, right? As I said, MTR mechanism, topic, rules, like uh, yeah, it applies to all life, um, and all people, you know.
And it's interesting you mentioned the concept of a social credit system. Of course, there could be many different implementations of that, and some might be good, others might be concerning, like the system that is being undertaken in China, which is essentially a very totalitarian system that tries to judge people not based on how objectively good they are, but how compliant they are with the regime. So there is that risk that a gamification type of approach could also be undertaken by actors whose values we don't agree with and whom we wouldn't want to have that kind of power. So what would be the aspects of the design of a good social credit system, in your view, that would prevent this kind of abuse?
Yeah, this is a big question, you know, like, so it depends in the regime, you know, where we apply it, whether it's like, say, democracy, then we might design it differently. And, you know, we could always, just in the book, I refer technology, you know, on the one way that the king is so much afraid, so he tries to stop time, and then there are you say that the bad guys that try to gain more control and power, and the good guys that always try to, you know, use technology for the betterment or for doing good, to spread freedom and happiness. So I think it's really in the political systems, because I think very much as it is applied in China, it could be applied in the US, but just differently. And you know, democracy could definitely benefit of what social credits have to offer as a system. I think IoT, AGI, or, you know, anywhere where we are heading at, it applies these mechanisms, you know, it's part of it. You know, we are all connected. So it's really like gamification of our connectiveness. It's part of it. It's how each and every one of us can improve, can become better, as for the complete system, humanity to become better.
Yes, indeed. And it's interesting because when I was younger, I was thinking of ways to reward beneficial behavior. And I was thinking of students who work hard to earn good grades, but often they're not paid for that work. Indeed, they often have to pay in order to go to certain educational institutions for the privilege of being able to work and earn good grades. And then once they've worked enough to graduate from that institution, then all of a sudden they can do a lot of the same work and start getting paid money to do that. And that was kind of strange to me, that at one stage in your life, you pay to do the same kind of work that you get paid to do at a later stage in your life. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to design an incentive system to pay students for getting good grades, even nominal amounts? Like if you get an A, which in the United States is the best grade in a class, for a quarter, you get $100 or something like that.
Absolutely, and it works. And there are some research done on that, and it works. And like providing with positive feedbacks rather than punishments, it improves our society as a whole. Like less people to have in jails, and less crime and chaos and fear on the streets. And another thing to mention in regard is that you said something that reminded me something I wanted to say. Can you repeat your last sentence? Maybe I'll recall.
Yes, so I was essentially discussing paying people for getting good grades.
So yes, like we know that now there is what's called like universal basic income, which is applied in some cities. And there were fears that people will, if they get paid for doing nothing, the economy would collapse. But the opposite is what's applies. People are spending more time into developing their creativity, following their passions, and just being in the right place, and it builds up the economy. So again, like social credit is part of it's a one of the game elements, just like a score system, just like paying students to become better students. Definitely it applies, and I'm very fond of it. I think myself that each and every one should be paid just to follow is hard, because if each and every one would have listened to his true self, we would have been a much happier, complete society. This is real sustainability, talking about the SDGs. This is where it starts. The change starts from within.
And of course, sustainability is about the long term and behaviors that can be perpetuated over the long term and have beneficial consequences in the long term. And I can see, for instance, if somebody studies and achieves academically, that could lead to long-term benefits for the society. That person could produce new scientific knowledge, new technologies. If somebody engages in healthy living, exercises, that could produce long-term benefits, because then that person will not require as much medical care to treat diseases, for example. So that person could save a lot of systems money in the long term. But likewise, new technologies could save money in the long term. For instance, if biological aging can be slowed and reversed, that would cut the predominant mass of medical care costs, which right now go to treat the elderly and diseases of aging. So there have been a lot of discussions in the transhumanist community about incentives for these kinds of long-term improvements, which are sometimes difficult to motivate in the current system. Either you have corporations which are very oriented toward short-term profits, the next quarter's earnings or the annual earnings, and they're not as motivated regarding what will happen 20 years from now or 30 years from now. They're reluctant to invest in these long-term projects. And then you also have governments. Governments fund some research. They tend to fund either very basic theoretical research or research that is considered very safe and non-controversial. So very high probability of success, because otherwise the officials who are distributing these funds might be accused of wasting taxpayer money, because there are some who would say, oh, this research is frivolous and you're wasting money on experiments that don't succeed. They don't realize that the scientific process is about trial and error as well, and the error is a part of that process. So how do you think games could contribute to shifting these incentives to enable more long-term focused research to occur?
Okay, it's a big question. Well, I think I will be repeating myself, but maybe there is another way to look at it, and it's like three steps approach, like mapping, exploring, protecting. Mapping, exploring, protecting. So mapping is like the first step in having a better understanding of what is it that we are trying to change or preserve, and just like, the picture of the world was mapped and became complete, and as we started to explore and then protect, on the system. So starting from having a better understanding of this three steps approach, we can design games that can fit at the meta system level. First we'll have a better understanding of a better view of the complete system. What is it? And exploring is here, like designing the right mechanism, topic, rules, credits, etc. To I want to say design our behavior, but it's yeah, I don't want to be repeating myself, so yeah, I don't think I have much to add answering this specific question.
It's interesting in terms of mapping that LEAF, the Life Extension Advocacy Foundation, which also runs lifespan.io, it's a crowdfunding site for small-scale research projects that are focused in rejuvenation biotechnology. It has actually published a roadmap for overcoming various types of aging-related damage. And you can see in that roadmap how they assess the progress of science toward repairing each type of damage. So for instance, is it in the stages of basic research? Have there been some clinical trials? Have there been some other breakthroughs in those areas? And you can see them essentially side by side, so you know which fields have made the most progress. So that's kind of the mapping stage that you describe. And that does help a lot. It helps people to see essentially what work has been done, what work remains to be done. We don't want people reinventing the wheel either. So if they contribute something, we want it to be in an area that actually pushes progress forward. So
yeah, no, I'll give you an example. Back in Hong Kong, I designed also a social game, and there was, like I said, like same as everyone likes a different ice cream flavor. Each one of us has something different in his heart. Like we have different causes we care for. So part of my mapping process was to map all the different causes we care for. So like I contacted nonprofits, tackling with different social or environmental problems like the working women and the elderly and ocean recovery, etc. And the game design here was that I contacted PayPal in Hong Kong, and the idea was that for everyone to have a smile on social media with a banana, $2 would go to the charity of his choice, to the cause that he wants. And when you design something as such, you could have a better understanding of a better mapping of what is it that people most care for. So this applies to the mapping. Exploring is like, okay, where do we put our resources and priorities? And protecting, I see it as a system that we repeat the process over and over as to make sure everyone is happy and allocate the right resources and attention, and so here is, for example, another game mechanism. It reached 10 different countries, even Southern Carolina and Senegal and more countries, and it went wonderful. Of course, I've learned a great deal from designing such a game, which also led me into designing this social challenge. Back then, the goal was also not just to help charities raise awareness, but also raise funding. And this was also part of the challenge, because just from the funding of people putting their banana smiles on social media, it was not enough. There also to design like a physical event and activities like these gala dinners, etc., where they can reach out to their communities that they serve but the beauty there was designed by what I call impact.com, like how do we create an impact. So I said that there are like three factors that can assist us in reaching an impact, a social impact. So it's like it's the critical mass, organized cooperation, and momentum. Critical mass, organized cooperation, and momentum. So critical mass is this amount of time for us. It has to be like this amount of time that we put all our resources and energy into reaching out to as many people as possible. How do we do it? By setting up this organized cooperation. So let's say each party, nonprofit, has about 2,000 people in their community. They would never alone reach an impact, but working together, like from time zero of the challenge, they can just reach this higher mass that can make global news. And then so critical mass, organized cooperation, and momentum. Momentum is really about raising, it's about doing it together, so we can reach it in a very short amount of time. That from there we reach the critical mass, and it just builds up on itself. You see, with the challenge 18, I'm opening groups of my own and again, and I've set up my team of students to open their groups. But then again, everyone whom is challenged, and they are also challenged to open their own groups. And as this picks up and builds up, the momentum, and you see now that such games can be played on a global scale. We are having this conversation, and it's part of it.
Yes, indeed. And it's interesting along these lines, Daniel Twett writes that the games that can evolve better will persist longer. Sharon has a good initial design philosophy with Challenge 18. So he's noting that it's scalable because it can be reproduced by other individuals. And I know Liz suggested an app potentially, which could automate some of the process of signing up for the challenge or receiving the challenges of the day. That would be another way to scale it. But it does seem that one critical component of game design is figuring out a way to reach that critical mass, which is not easy to do sometimes because it's not easy to predict which concepts will catch on, which concepts will spread beyond the efforts of the original creator. So if you could share some of your thoughts regarding that, how to effectively build a critical mass. I think that's going to be helpful to people who seek to design these systems to improve the world.
Again, I mentioned one of the key elements is by organized cooperation. It's for us to see that we are not racing against each other. It's like we can co-opete. It took me 2 hours to convince the nonprofits that they should cooperate. They were so much afraid of sharing, like sharing their audiences and communities. But the very next morning, they were all, exclusively, all of them wish to be part of the game. So it's only by working together that we can combat, tackle such big issues like as climate change and the coronavirus and reach out any critical mass. So any new ideology or game mechanism, if we're talking about, for example, transhumanism, I think Challenge 18 is a great way to raise the awareness and toward more compassion to AI and a better understanding and just not spreading fear and chaos. It's exactly the opposite. Just like the SDGs were designed, once you put it in colors and symbols, people can see it. They can say, "Hey, I'm not any longer afraid of it because I know what it is. I can see it." So, for example, in the thinking method I designed, Think, which is interdisciplinary thinking design with encoded symbols in it. As I said, that our consciousness thinks in symbols. So the using just like every company on earth as a logo, right? It's a symbol that represents the company. So as we'll better so as we'll have the symbols that represent longevity and AGI and singularity. So once our consciousness will have this symbol in our mind, just like the Superman mark on the sky, right? Then we will not any longer be afraid of what it is and what it might bring along.
And it's interesting that you point out the importance of symbols because we've had that discussion within the transhumanist community. Indeed, in 2019, we essentially crowdsourced the creation of a large number of free transhumanist symbols. And I've shared the link in the chat of the video here, essentially to represent transhumanism and the various aspects of what the transhumanist movement stands for. And Art Ramon has contributed quite a few symbols to that compilation. And I'd be interested, Art Ramon, in your thoughts on symbols and their effectiveness and how they can be deployed essentially to motivate people to take part in a movement.
Yeah, the ones I developed, they were sort of rough drafts, and I was just brainstorming. And what I like to do is just do a bunch of brainstorming and get feedback from people, because everyone has different ideas on what an image represents to them, but you try to find some consensus. And I just generated a whole bunch of them. Some of them based on the old H plus symbol, but trying to get a consensus of what everyone could sort of see. This symbol, yes, can sort of have an idea, and it represents that object or that concept. But it can be challenging. I get a lot of criticism too. It's like I created a logo. You spend a lot of time doing a logo, and then people don't like it. And I know there was a bunch of suggestions when you crowdsourced that, and some were very busy, and sometimes simplicity works well with the eyes rather than something that's busy. And yeah, I'm actually curious, Sharon, how did you come up with your symbols?
Thank you for your question. I just want to add one thing to the previous question by Gennady. I said organized cooperation is one of the ways to reach this critical mass. I think even more than that, it's about values. This challenge would have been nothing if it didn't touch people in the hearts. It's really about the values that we care. And if you will allow me to share screen, I could show you my symbol system I developed.
I think we will need to have the host role transferred to you now. David Shoemaker may have stepped away. Oh, I'm the host now. So yes. Now if I can make Sharon the host. Yes. Now you should be able to share the screen.
Yeah, so thank you for this lovely question, Art Fremont. So here we can see what I call the periodic table of technology and work. So I've placed on the top part the SDGs as we know them. You see like their symbol and color design. And then below them, I've placed current different sectors and categories of topics of interest, like from engineering and construction to fintech and e-commerce, left to right, education and knowledge. And I just placed some generic symbols, like for example, if you look at extreme sport, then there are so many different extreme sports, right? It's not just a motorcycle or ball games. It could be like from ping pong to bowling to whatever. So like if this was like an interactive system though, so by pressing on the button, you would have seen like it would have been opened before you all the different ball games. The reason I left those empty, because these represent, if this is the current parent generation, so this is like the sons, the generation, these are the future works that will be created in 2 to 5 years. Let me give you an example. How can we have a better understanding of what future work might look like? So I'm giving you like 2 examples of exercises that I designed for this periodic table here. So let's say I have my personal interest in programming, aviation, and solar energy. Okay, if this is my personal passion. So by connecting those, okay, what if we connected those? What new venture we could come up with? Okay, so by thinking of such a new venture, I could actually follow up and think about a future job, like it might be a solar drone operator or engineer, and so on. And now, how would we know that this imaginary work would actually applicable for future work? So here we have the answer. So like new ventures, as we know, and startups, 95% of them fail as they don't applied to real world problems. And here, if this solar drone could help us end poverty, hunger, like maybe be used as like an ambulance drone, etc., then we can know for higher certainty that such a job will exist in 2 to 5 years. And, there are over 130,000 different possibilities here, and endless just by using our imagination of connecting those three. And what's so beautiful here is that we could apply this to allow students and each and every one of us of having a better understanding, like how to connect the dots of your life and create new ones. What is it that you can and want to be when you grow up, or just do next down the road in your own personal hero's journey? And like, again, the possibilities here are endless, and what's beautiful about here, it's like it's an open source. I designed it that, just like again, Gennady, you shared that you sourced different symbols for transhumanism. Here, people can upvote and downvote for different symbols. So, and then again, I mean, if this symbol, for example, like gets most of the upvotes, and each and everyone could design it, that's what's so beautiful about it. And if most people have voted, this could become part of our future symbol, like, that we all imagine in our minds, just like as we think of a banana, we see this image of a banana. So where we think of a solar drone, we see that. And then just take all these cutting edge technologies and connect those as to come up with the new jobs and future technologies. So this table provides us a better understanding of the future workplace technologies, etc., and how they can actually help us with the global challenges.
Yes, and this is a great table of symbols, well designed, visually appealing, and they do convey, I think, some of the essential aspects of each of the areas. There was an interesting comment earlier about Challenge 18, and Daniel Twett suggested that perhaps it could be made to work with like art trading cards. And I was thinking with these symbols, perhaps if there were cards that people could, for instance, bring to a party or a gathering, and the purpose of the game would be to pick 3 cards at random and then ask people to brainstorm, well, what field of future technology or future activity could potentially arise from this combination? Oh, wow, they exist. They exist already. Okay. So it looks like you anticipated that type of thinking. But yes, this would be a great activity for people to exercise their imagination and perhaps come up with possibilities that haven't been thought of before.
You want to try a game?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know how to ask you to choose a card, but I'll just point and you stop me. Like, you just
all right.
say here?
Here.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is
nutrition.
Exactly. Okay, I'll continue.
All right, this one. Renewable energy.
Okay.
Okay. This one. Yes. Let's see. Nutrition, renewable energy, and software applications. Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah, so let me help you, because this is called higher order thinking, like hot higher order thinking. And now what we're gonna do is open up your mind associatively. So when you think about software application, name 3 things that come up to your mind, like right away.
Well, there are fitness apps, there are video conferencing programs, and then there are office programs like Word and Excel. So those are some potential software applications that are out there.
So let's repeat: Word and Excel, and what others?
Fitness apps and video conferencing programs. Yes.
Okay, so remember this. Let's see. Art Ramon, renewable energy. 3 things come up to your mind.
Helium-3, mine from the moon, solar, and thorium reactors.
Okay, great. And nutrition?
Well, I will go ahead.
I'd say lowering cholesterol, healthier alternative meats to industrial farming, and I don't know, maybe some of that algae mana food.
Okay, well, like it would be great if you could type those down. but you know, so now you see we have like you know, we have more associations, you know, to start with. Like we have enlarged our map in our mind to start with. So what if we connected those 3? What new idea for a venture we can come up with? So like you said, there was the exercise app, right? The exercise app?
Yes.
And then you took and then like there was renewable energy, you said, like solar panels or something, Artramon? And nutrition, you said something with algae. Okay, this
algae
is
mana.
Algae mana. Okay, so let's, you know, like try to combine those 3. Actually, like the way I do it is like it's by brain writing. Each one writes down, and then he has like 3 minutes to have this personal thinking, just like, you know, so to make sure that everyone thinks for himself, so he develops there. But just let's play the game, you know, just like
so could you have like a solar farm which has as its primary purpose the gathering of solar energy? So there would be solar panels, but these solar panels could also supply some sort of cultivation facility for the algae. And that would be a secondary purpose. So this solar array, it generates electricity, but it also could do something on site. And then there could be some way of tracking, like if someone consumes this food, they would log it into an app, and there would be some system that would give them points for doing it. Presumably this would be a healthy food. This would be something they'd want to incorporate into their day-to-day diet regimen.
what about like tattoos made from algae and biochips that can, you know, actually improve us? And so we have the solar panels, we have the algae, and you know, we have the exercise, right? So they will help us to be more fit and healthy, like this. Just as
Yes, interesting concept. Art Ramon, any more ideas along these lines, how to combine them?
Well, I mean, I guess To me, combining the solar panels with algae growing to create that monofood would be ideal. But then to move that over to something else, that's where I'm having a little issue. I've had to probably ponder on it a little longer. But I know there's a guy in Australia that's working on, like what someone said, the chlorella algae. I know someone in Australia is working on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I think, going to be a bit of a challenge how exactly to integrate some sort of app around that. I mean, you could grow the algae using the solar power and sell it. With regard to the fitness app, well, what if you create an incentive for the people cultivating the algae? Like if they're working in that environment, the solar arrays are generally going to be in a more remote area, like there are large solar arrays in the Nevada desert where there isn't high population density, but there's a lot of sun, and the workers need something to keep themselves occupied. So you create an app to give them an incentive to be fit and spend some of their time running, for example. And it's a fitness app that tracks your running. Of course, those exist now and are quite popular. So that might be one way to do it.
I was just thinking about climate change, and like actually algae that serve as solar panels, of nature, photosynthesis. So actually, maybe it will not help us just become more fit and healthy, but also fight climate change, to reduce the levels of carbon dioxide in the
I know that if you have a lot of algae water, you can grow snails. And snails are very prolific. And because they use carbon in their shells, that would be like a carbon sink. So maybe you can combine the algae growing with also growing snails. And then eventually you can use those snails for chicken food. So
yeah, so we brainstormed, we played with some ideas, that we never knew when we started this conversation. We're going to talk about algae and snails and like biochips tattoos, with an app, like we were talking about an app. Obviously you could apply an app to that to see, how healthy the algae in our tattoos are, etc. And all connected to our doctors. So, like on a big IoT system.
Yes, that's great. And it's interesting that you brought in the health of the algae. I was thinking of the health of the humans, but yes, you could have a tracking mechanism for whatever you're trying to cultivate. Of course, that has been an area of advances recently with regard to smart home technology. So you have apps that can monitor some aspect of your home. Why not some aspect of the algae as well? So great. And I think a lot of people in the chat were motivated to comment based on the little experiment that we performed. So Jason Geringer writes that this reminds him of the manna machine from Exodus in the Bible. Someone built a machine that makes algae from reading the description from the Bible. That's funny. And then Daniel Twett writes, green zone strategies can be gamified. And this seems to be an example of that. Zach Richardson jokes, Gennady advocates running. That's him for sure. And yes, I'm a runner. I run about 6 to 7 miles per day, sometimes longer. So doing the planks every day isn't that much of an effort for me, but it's good to focus me in that direction because it diversifies some of my exercises so that I don't just do endurance exercise. I do some core training as well. Now, Zach also wants to know if you have heard of the Seasteading Institute in the United States. They try to build these modular ocean platforms where people can experiment with a variety of technologies and forms of governance. And the point of seasteads is that each platform can move around, perhaps very slowly, but attach or detach with regard to other platforms. So if they join together, they could have some synergies. Maybe they could even have their own experimental system of government. But then if they decide to go their own ways, each of these modules could float away and maybe join another community. And that way there would be more experimentation and people wouldn't be stuck together necessarily in arrangements that don't work out. So what are some of your thoughts about this concept of seasteading?
No, it sounds amazing, you know.
Yes, indeed. And this organization, the Seasteading Institute, it's been active in the US since 2008. Their biggest obstacle has been finding a place that allows them to experiment with these platforms. They've tried to make connections with various countries, island nations, cities like autonomous zones within particular countries. Up to now, I don't think they have come across an arrangement that would enable them to truly refine this technology to the extent that they would like. But I think it's a great application for a lot of these transhumanist concepts as well as the sustainable development goals, because on each seastead you could have essentially its own experiment running about how to use technology or systems of governance to improve the human condition. So
yeah. No, it brings me back to the fantasy world that I've created, which is like I divided the whole kingdom into 17 tribes that represent the SDGs. That so it's kind of just brought me back to it, and yeah, like one of the ways I don't want to tell too much about the book, but one of the ways to avoid the big flood that was coming the way was to build like a floating or a flying stadium, you know. So yeah, so it's like kind of made me go there and think about it.
yes, indeed. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about where people can expect to find your book. I understand you're in the stages of crowdfunding it right now. What are your plans for releasing it? And is it going to be available in English?
Okay, so absolutely it's gonna be in English, no doubt. And now it's gonna be in Hebrew. If you will allow me to share screen, maybe here you allow me, I can share the direct link where it is now. You see, it's like a head start. It's the platform. It's just like the Kickstarter, but it's called Head Start. The project is called Journey to Ludoland. See, Journey to Ludoland. You have a button here that changes the language between Hebrew to English. Like actually I'm 43%, and I have 2 days left to reach the destination for the book fundraising. Here is my video, 61 supporters. Here is like my message about you know, like what if there were no anymore new toys and games? Is there a way to maintain a sustainable human society and survive the climate crisis? What is your and our responsibility as human beings? And here you see the correlation to the challenge, that this is, I think, the only book in history about, I don't presume or pretend to know, but like, I think it's just a beautiful connection in my eyes to on the one hand to write a book, and then also to challenge the readers, you know. And what if this was a movie, right? So it's very engaging and interactive. So like the viewers, they watch a movie, same as they read a book, and then they are the protagonist, as on our way to save our world, you know. Yes, so I mean, if you have any interest to visit this page and make this a reality, then you're more than welcome to visit the website. I did many years of research, giving tens of people from all ages to actually read the book, and I got really high recommendations about it. And yeah, that's about the book, Journey to Ludoland. It's called Head Start CYL. I mean, I can share more information, you know.
Great. And
Today. Yeah.
I've posted the link to the fundraiser in the chat for this salon. So if you're interested, please go there and contribute. Daniel Twet also says in the chat, hopefully you will be able to get into the holiday gift rush for 2020, and he will help with sharing the link to the fundraiser on Facebook.
I have 2 days left to complete the fundraising. So if I'm there, yeah, I'll do my best to. But I don't think this Christmas it's gonna be ready. No, not this. But translated to English, I think in about, let's say, 4 to 5 months, it can be done. It can be achieved. So
Yes.
yeah.
How long do you plan the book to be, approximately?
Oh, it's about 300 pages long.
Oh, wow.
It's already written. It's under editing, like now. And I chose a really appreciated editor, and yeah, I'm doing my best, you know, to, because I think the book could have even a greater impact than the challenge itself alone. As together they can, if you ask me about gamification, is just like toy companies, they never put on Toys R Us shelf like a single item. They always do like a set of 6 different games, because this is the name of the game. This is visibility, and this is branding, and this is like, you know, licensing. It's all about the providing like 5 to 6 different options to choose from, have more categories. So here is another game element, you know. So you see, you add more value by just like an accessory, right? You come up with the Barbie and then build up the whole line, just making money off accessories. So you have the book, and then you have the challenge, and actually I have more to share of that. Is like, it's the kingdom of toys and games. So I've designed so many different games and toys that are part of this, which is like nothing, you know, else in the market. So yeah.
Yes, indeed. And
Hopefully.
there's a question in the chat from Ole Peter Galassen, who is asking, what will the money go to in your fundraiser?
Definitely to pay the expenses, mostly for the literature editor. it's really, this is where most of the money goes to. And then like to the doing yeah, then you could say like yeah, more than printing also was even the designer, because I designed here like so many different characters, and the map of the kingdom. I could show it if you want to see the map of the kingdom, which is like,
Yes, please do.
it's amazing. It's like, wow. So much around it, you know, like that this is the map, but maybe I can share with you like presentation. Funny, if I knew we're gonna talk about the also the game, the book, I would have shared like a complete presentation. Let me share screen. So let's see, maybe this is a presentation. Yeah, so maybe this is like so here I designed a map that looks like a 10-gram puzzle. Like you see, like actually it's the kingdom. You see the Kabbalistic sign for the tree of life, which is in the middle you have the palace, and here you have Ludoland, which is like the sacred place. The SDGs, right? The trail of like sustainability garden, something as such. Yeah, and this is the symbol of Ludoland, which is the symbol of if you're talking about symbols, and it's the symbol of time. You see, time is also like an hourglass. Is also like it's also finite, and yet it's also infinite. So it's about mindfulness and living here in the right place, where, you know, right here, right now, good to be alive. It means like, yeah, we know that we live in the present, not the future, not the past, and the time, you know, is finite, and yet we know that present is infinite. It's our present. So this map is like as a tangram. And here is the map, not as a tangram, just like, you know, if as a map. So yeah, most of the money goes toward the literature, editing, the art design, and printing, of course, and translation. I mean, what I'm trying to raise in funds is not even half actually of what is it that I need to spend. So you know, it's way much more than what's in the crowdfunding. Yeah, actually, so it's these are you have the characters, you know, this is like the hero's journey. I mean, it's in Hebrew. I have it also in English, in fact, but I need to find it in English.
Yes, if you're able to find it in English, please feel free to share at that time. I do want to note the symbol with the hourglass and infinity. It reminds me of the US Transhumanist Party symbol with the upward sloping infinity and the exponential growth curve moving through it. So the use of infinity symbols to designate essentially continuous improvement, progress. I think that fits in both of our efforts in that the sustainable development goals, the key is the sustainability to make it possible to preserve these values for an indefinite amount of time. And that's also what we in the transhumanist community are seeking to achieve with life extension, with protecting societies against existential risks and hopefully enabling an indefinite existence for our species and for sentient life.
Yeah.
And also, I'm curious, Daniel Twet asks, are the game cards that you showed available now if somebody wants to purchase a set?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to contact me in person because I have a website, Think Global. I guess you can find it there, but I think it's better you contact me in person and just make the order. Yeah, yeah. But I have I have sets in English, so yeah, feel free to contact me.
Excellent. And I will put the link for Ting Global in the chat as well for those who want to explore your website. Now I'm curious, Art Ramon, do you have any questions or comments for Sharon about his book project or anything else that we discussed today?
Yeah, it looks like you have a lot of work done with the art there. Is that your rough draft, or do you already have a graphic designer working with you?
No, I have a graphic designer working with me.
Okay.
Actually, I had a few, on the way that that I assigned each for different parts.
Okay, and I saw some of the characters looked angry. There was an angry bird and some angry
Oh,
monkeys. So are they like protagonists?
yeah, they are like, yeah, exactly. I mean, the angry, so they are the bad guys, like I chose them as the bad guys, like the crows, and the baboons. Um, I use archetypes and subconsciousness and animals as to reach, just as like in Animal Farm, and like all the other, like Isophel and La Fontaine, like, yeah, it's really the best way to convey messages. Um, People feel safe and unthreatened, and you get the message through your subconscious, and it's there in our archetypes. Same as with symbols, like same as with fear of the snake and crows, and like in most mythologies, crows are like regarded as bad. Just by Nordic mythologies, it's the opposite. Um, but I played with it right. It's not like there is always, like the same is in comic books, right? You have the absolute evil, and then you have all the followers, that which are like also evil, but not absolute. So yeah.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for showing us this Journey to Ludoland project. And I would encourage those of us in the audience to look around, and you are able to get the webpage for the fundraiser translated into English. So read the descriptions in English if you don't know Hebrew. And hopefully you will get the book published and funded, Sharon, and we might be able to get English language copies sometime in 2021. But in the meantime, I would like to ask, first of all, Art Ramon, if you have any closing comments or questions for Sharon, and after that, we will leave our guest with the last word for this virtual Enlightenment Salon.
Thanks for coming and showing us the game. Definitely, I see use in part of the game for 1.0 idea generation. So that was revealing. I definitely like that part there. I'm not vegan, so that's probably the only problem I'd have with it. But thank you for coming.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And I will say with regard to Challenge 18, I think there's something in there for everyone, and the way you designed it is conducive to that. So if somebody wants to start out with watching the TED Talks, they could do that. If somebody wants to do the plank exercises, they could do that. And then I would venture to suggest if you leave the challenges open, accessible for people to pursue at their own pace, I think you would get even more interest and a higher take-up rate for
Yeah,
them.
I do so. I do so. That's something I mentioned before with students and soldiers and like, yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Well, now it has come to the closing remarks. So please feel free to share with us any thoughts that you have arising out of this conversation or anything else that you would like to inform our audience about.
Well, I'll start by thanking you, Gennady, and Art Ramon, and David Schumacher, and Newton Lee, and Liz, and everyone in the USTP for having me here. And yeah, for anyone who is interested in joining Challenge 18, then just contact me and I'll invite you to the next group I open. I'm very much open to suggestions and remarks and anything at all you wish to share with me. I am on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, just look me up. And yes, I hope to make it, with the book and the challenge and have this impact on future generations as, to become better beings, that's simply said,
Yes,
so.
indeed. So thank you, Sharon, for coming today and sharing your insights with us. It has been quite an engaging session. We even got to play a game during the Salon, so hopefully our audience enjoyed that. And this is what we try to do with our virtual Enlightenment Salons. We try to have these interdisciplinary conversations that build connections and give rise to new insights and new possibilities. So I hope everyone in the audience will return for our subsequent virtual Enlightenment Salons. Generally, we hold them every Sunday at 1 p.m. US Pacific time. Sometimes, to accommodate our international guests, we might hold the salons at a different time, but we will announce that in advance. And in the meantime, I hope everyone has a wonderful remainder of the weekend. I know that next week the US election is coming up, so I would just urge you to vote your conscience and vote for the kinds of options that you think will result in a better society, a better world. And remember, in many states in the country, you can write in Charlie Cam for president and Liz Parrish for vice president. If you do that, let us know at US Transhumanist Party at protonmail.com. And with that, I hope that you all live long and prosper.